Welcome to the Bible Made Clear and our next discipleship class. So we have been going through the 12 points that show that Christianity is true based on Dr. Norman Geisler's presentations and with some adjustments by me. However, for the most part, the foundational presentations are his. And we have reached point number 9, therefore, Jesus is God. And as you can see, more information, you can go to his website. So this is where we have come to. We have established the truth, theistic God, miracles. Miracles are used to confirm a message from God. The New Testament is accurate. The New Testament tells us Jesus claimed to be God. Jesus' claim to be God was miraculously confirmed. Therefore, in this presentation, Jesus is God, and then we'll hit the other 3 presentations as we move forward. So here's the outline we're going to follow. The argument for miraculous confirmation, the nature of miraculous confirmation, the challenge to miraculous confirmation, and then that should bring us full circle here. And so first, the argument for miraculous confirmation. As we go through here, the criteria for miraculous confirmation. Number 1, the event should be immediate, not gradual, to qualify as a miracle. So we have to deal with the fact of miracles. Now, we know that when we say, therefore, Jesus is God, that is the conclusion. But we want to understand these miraculous confirmations that we have. So here, defining it, it needs to be immediate and not gradual to qualify as a miracle. There should be multiple miracles, not just one. And the miracles should be connected with a truth claim in the name of God. Now, that is an important criteria because you can have something to appear miraculous, yet is not connected to a truth claim in the name of God, and therefore can be very misleading. We have in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 13 and 18, a warning as to people that would promote something that a claim that even would come true, potentially miraculous, but at least prophetically it would actually come true, but yet it was not a truth claim in the name of God. It was to actually lead away from God. So, and they should be from reliable sources, not just something arbitrary. And number 5, a predictive element adds to the credibility of a miraculous claim. I mean, certainly the predictive aspect is demonstrating that, the information is coming from one outside of the time-space continuum because they can see everything happening within time. So the event should be immediate, number 1. Matthew 8:3 says, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I will be clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. So this was the cleansing of the leper. He said, if you will make me clean, he said, I will. And he touched him and cleansed him. Now, obviously, as he touched him, he became clean, so he was not touching an unclean leper. Further on, in verse 13, and to the centurion, Jesus said, go, let it be done for you as you have believed. And the servant was healed at that very moment. So again, the centurion came to Jesus because his servant was ill and actually found out that he had died. So he said, I know you don't have to come to my house if you just, I know you have the authority. If you say be healed, he'll be healed. And so Jesus marveled at his faith because he was a Roman centurion. He wasn't even a Jew, but he had faith and he understood it. And he connected faith to authority, understanding God had the authority to accomplish these things. Acts 3, 6 and 7, Peter said, in the name of Jesus, this was going into the temple, him and John. where the lame man that was there every day, they set him there. He was lame from his birth. In the name of Jesus of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And he took him by the right hand, raised him up, and immediately his feet and ankles were made strong. And leaping up, he stood and began to walk. So these miracles were immediate miracles, right? They weren't gradual. It didn't take years for them to happen. They weren't developed over time. They happened at that moment. No gradual miracles in the Bible. Number one, there is one two-stage miracle, but each stage was instantaneous. So each miracle was really immediate. The two stages, and the one in Mark 8, where the guy that he healed that was blind, he said, "I see men walking like trees." Jesus laid his hands on him again, and then he said, "Yeah, I can see everything correctly." But the two stages were an auto-visual illustration of Israel's two-stage enlightenment. That's certainly an interpretation we could put to that. If it is gradual, it's not a miracle. If it's a miracle, it is not gradual. There should be multiple miracles, which adds confirmation. Acts 1:3 as a reference, right? So, there are some 250 miracles in the Bible. Over 60 miracles are recorded in the Gospels out of those 250. Many miracles were multiple healings. In Matthew 9, Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, healing every disease and every affliction. Now, oftentimes, because Jesus always healed everybody that came to him, he never sent anybody away and said, "No, I'm not going to heal you." He never did that. And so people today equate the fact that, well, where Jesus healed everybody, then he should heal everybody today. And that does not logically follow. The condition that Jesus was dealing with was, number one, he was right there. He was the Son of God in human flesh, and he was the Messiah, the King of Israel, presenting himself to Israel. And so one of the indications, the main indication that he was the Messiah, is that he was going to do the things that he did. So he had power over sickness, which he could perform the miraculous healings. He had power over the spiritual world, where he could cast out demons. He had power over nature. He could walk on water and calm storms. He had power over sin. He lived a sinless, miraculous life. And then he had power over death. He rose again from the dead. So there's basically 5 aspects that we do not have power over. In Christ, we have victory over them because he did, but it doesn't logically follow that every single person that just comes to Jesus and says, "Jesus, heal me," will immediately be healed. Some people are and some people aren't, but that all depends upon the situation, God's will being performed, what God's plan is, how he's using people in different circumstances, who he wants to reach. There's so many factors. And I think we need to remember that even though Jesus never refused to heal everybody, he didn't heal everybody that needed to be healed. He didn't raise everyone from the dead that needed to be raised from the dead, or that was dead. He rose Jairus' daughter, the widow of Nain's son, Lazarus, but there was a lot of people that died, I'm sure, that would like to see their loved ones raised from the dead, but he didn't raise them all from the dead. He didn't make every rainstorm go away. In other words, these incidences that the Gospels share with us are representing him as the Messiah. In other words, he demonstrated that. He had the power over these areas that we do not naturally have, and it was the fulfilling of prophecy. There were prophecies about the Messiah that he would do these things, and he was performing those acts. So in the sense that we should go to Jesus and ask him to heal us. God is still a healing God. He healed in the Old Testament. He heals in the New Testament. But there is a criteria and a circumstance for every situation. And we can't just eliminate God's will and purpose for each of these. And so, for example, in John 5, he basically walked into an area where there was a whole bunch of sick people, but he only picked on one guy to heal him. It just, even the one that we just referenced, where Peter and John went by that lame man that was set at the temple every day. How many years did they walk by him? Jesus had to have walked by this guy, but never healed him. So it's at God's right timing, and what God's trying to accomplish. So, does there need to be faith? Yes, but it's not always the faith of the individual. Sometimes, certainly raising people from the dead, it's not the faith of the individual. And sometimes healing people. It has nothing to do with the faith of the individual. The guy in the Gospel of Mark that was let down through the roof by his 4 friends, Jesus said he saw the faith of the friends. So I think that sometimes, Jesus is kind of locked in this box where we try to make it so that we can formularize healing when really healing is left, to the prerogative of God. And I guess the way I would say it is we have the opportunity for healing. We do not have the guarantee. God has not obligated himself to heal every individual that is either a believer, that has faith, or that wants to be healed. He has not obligated himself covenantally to do that, though some people try to make that so. Acts 28:9, the rest of the people on the island who had diseases also came and were healed. Now this was when Paul was at Miletus. He had healed Publius's father. People were coming to Christ. The miraculous healings convinced the islanders there that the gospel that Paul was preaching was real. And then the people that came, God healed. That's what he was doing at that point in time. Some miracles of Jesus. He turned water into wine. That happened right away. He walked on water, multiplying loaves, healing a man born blind, raising a decaying body, resurrecting himself, healing Peter's mother-in-law, healing many witnesses, healing 10 lepers, healing a paralytic, healing a centurion servant, casting out demons, healing an infirmed woman, healing a man with dropsy, healing 2 blind men, withering the fig tree, which was also a miracle, restoring a servant's ear, healing a nobleman's son, healing a withered hand. And we need to understand that through all of these, that we see Jesus performing all of these miracles, demonstrating he is the Messiah and he is the Son of God, come as the King, proclaiming himself to Israel. Now, the miracles should be connected to a truth claim in the name of God. So Moses says, and Moses said, right? In other words, Moses had truth claims connected to the miraculous in his life. Hereby you shall know that the Lord has sent me. If the Lord creates something new and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, then you shall know that these men have despised the Lord. So that is in reference to Korah and his rebellion. So the ground did open up, swallow up all these people, and then that was a confirmation that God was speaking through Moses, as if we needed more confirmation after the 10 plagues and the opening of the Red Sea, but apparently they needed some more because of their rebellious hearts. Elijah, he said, O Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, that I am your servant. This is on Mount Carmel with his contest with the 400 prophets of Baal. Then fire of the Lord came down and consumed the burnt offering, and the wood and stones and dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. So again, this was immediate, and it also came as connected with the truth claim that God was the true and the living God that should be worshipped. Jesus to the Jewish leaders, he says, that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins. This was the one that was let down through the ceiling I was just telling you about, the guy, the paralytic. He said to the paralytic, I say to you, rise, take up your bed, and go your way to your house. So again, the miracle was connected to the claim that he could forgive sin. And he had that power, because even the Pharisees realized, they said, what are you doing? Only God can forgive sins, which they were correct. What their incorrect view was is that they were not recognizing Jesus as the Messiah, the Son of God. So Jesus to John's disciples, who asked if he was the Messiah, he said, now this is when John was in jail by Herod, and Jesus said, go and tell John the things which you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. In other words, you should know that I'm the Messiah, not because I get you out of prison or anything connected with that, but because I am fulfilling what was prophesied about the Messiah. That is the key, the scriptures. Confirming the apostles' message. Hebrews 2 tells us, actually exhorts us, how shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation, which at first began to be spoken by the Lord, and was confirmed to us by those who heard him, God also bearing witness both with signs, wonders, and various miracles. So God confirmed the message with the miraculous. Confirming Jesus as Messiah. At the end of the Gospel of John, it says, truly, Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these things are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah, right? The Son of God. And that believing you'd have life in his name. So, again, the connection with the miraculous and the truth claim. Number 4, a predictive element adds to the credibility of a miraculous claim. So Jesus said to the scribes, none meaning no sign, none will be given except the sign of the prophet Jonah. They were asking for one. But they were asking skeptically because they didn't believe. They were challenging him. Just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, even so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. And so, again, you have the miraculous response with the truth claim. And then you have the 10 plagues. Moses promised supernatural judgments of God on Egypt, that the rod of God would bud, that Korah would be judged. So, again, Moses was easily confirmed as God's spokesman in the Old Testament, which is important because him being confirmed and then laying down the first 5 books of the law establishes the foundation for the whole rest of the Bible, especially in relation to Israel, but also the outgrowth of the New Testament from that. So it was established very early that there were doctrines and practices that were established that could not be deviated from, otherwise they would be heretical or idolatrous. The predictive element of miracles. Isaiah said only God could make accurate predictions long before the events occurred. He said, even from the beginning I have declared to you, before it came to pass, I proclaimed it to you, lest you say, my idol has done them. So again, the challenge through the prophet Isaiah that there is now a predictive element within the miraculous, really a prophetic predictive element. Isaiah even predicted Cyrus by name, really over 100 years before Cyrus was born. Here's the verse. Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have grasped to subdue nations before him. Again, Cyrus is not even a person that existed at that point. Isaiah's ministry was from 700 to 690 BC, and Cyrus was born and lived 600 to 529. Some see Isaiah's ministry actually even earlier than that, in around 800, but the point is that way ahead of time, bottom line. Elijah predicted that fire would come down from heaven and consume the sacrifice he offered to God. We saw the verses related to that. Jesus predicted his resurrection, right? Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Then John adds, but he was speaking about the temple of his body. So this is in John 2. He had cleansed the temple. They challenged him, and when he said, destroy this temple in 3 days, they thought he was speaking of the temple of his body, but John clarifies it by saying he was speaking about his body and not the actual temple that was added onto and built beyond the second temple added to by Herod. No sign would be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. We've referenced this, for just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish, the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Again, Jesus is predicting, and he will accomplish his own resurrection. He, Jesus, said he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Matthew 17, tell no one the vision until the Son of Man be raised from the dead. John 13, this is at the Last Supper. Now I tell you, before it comes to pass, that when it comes to pass, you may believe that I am he. In other words, I am the Messiah. The unique nature of Jesus' miracles. Many were violation of natural laws. Many were of incurable diseases. One was of a decaying corpse, that was Lazarus, that was stinking after 4 days. One was of a man born blind in John 9. Many were before large crowds. In other words, he did these things publicly. They weren't done in secret. Some were predicted in advance. Even some professional magicians admit that in their original context, these could not be magical tricks. That was really the unique nature of Jesus' miracles, even as some professionals today look back and they realize that as they comment on it. The nature of miraculous confirmation and the challenge to miraculous confirmation. So we've seen the argument for, the nature of, the challenge. Hume's challenge stated. Now, David Hume was a great skeptic that presented some major challenges to those of the faith, a few hundred years ago, but he has been easily answered. It's just that he did have a formidable presentation that convinced a lot of people that the miraculous was not possible. There were other religions examined, so let's take a look at Hume's challenge as he stated. So here's his stated challenge. Every miracle, therefore, pretended to have been wrought in any of these religions, and all of them abound in miracles, as its direct scope is to establish the particular system to which it is attributed. So has it the same force, though more indirectly, to overflow every other system. In destroying a rival system, it likewise destroys the credit of those miracles on which that system was established. It's interesting, Hume ended up really kind of defining miracles away, but it really gave no practical position on it in that sense. So miracle claims in opposing religions are self-canceling. That's his statement. Number one, both Christian and non-Christian religions use the same alleged miracles to confirm their truth claims. Number two, but these religions have opposing truth claims. This is his points, right? Number 3, opposing claims cannot both be true. Number 4, hence the same alleged miracle can't be used to confirm the truth of one religion over others. So basically, if you have healing in Christianity and healing in Hinduism, then because they have opposing claims from a religious standpoint, their miracles to confirm them are confirming opposing claims, and so each cancels each other out and you got no miracles. A miracle argument has a false, his miracle argument has a false premise in it. Premise 1. Both Christian and non-Christian religions use the same alleged miracles to confirm their truth claims. This is false. Non-Christians use unverified miracle claims. In other words, they're stated claims, but they're not verified. Number 2, these religions have opposing truth claims. And number 3, opposing claims cannot both be true. Hence, the miracles can't be used to confirm the truth of one religion over another. So, note, the conclusion does not follow. So, if you have two religions that have opposing truth claims, saying that the miracles will cancel out because their truth claims are opposite, it does not logically follow, right? Because non-Christians have unverified truth claims. So that's like saying anytime any group or religion says, well, we have healings, well, then that automatically will cancel out Christianity, because if it's a religion opposed to Christianity and Christianity's truth claims, then you just have to cancel them out. But the premise fails, premise number 1, because just making a claim does not put the condition properly forth to invalidate Christianity. The criteria for miraculous confirmation. Number 1, the event should be immediate, not gradual, to qualify as a miracle, as we saw. Number 2, there should be multiple, as we saw. Number 3, the miracles should be connected with a truth claim in the name of God, we saw. Number 4, they should be from reliable sources, and a predictive element adds credibility. Hume's challenge restated: Christianity alone has miraculous evidence of its truth claims. So let's restate it. Christianity alone has verified miraculous confirmation of its truth claims. Number 2, other religions have opposing truth claims. Opposing claims cannot both be true. Hence, Christianity alone has verified miraculous confirmation of its truth claims, and all opposing claims are false. So to work it around, if you fix Hume's first premise, then actually it supports Christianity as a truth claim, since the miracles are verified and other religions are not. How about other religions examined? Miracle claims in Judaism, miracle claims about Buddha, miracle claims about Krishna, and miracle claims for Apollonius of Tyana in 98, and the miracle claims for Muhammad. So let's look at these. The miracle claims in Judaism. Number 1, biblical Judaism. There is no conflict between the claims of Old Testament Judaism and Christianity, since Christianity is a fulfillment of the predictions of Old Testament Judaism about the Messiah. Post-biblical Judaism. This is different. There is a direct conflict between Christianity and post-biblical Judaism, since the latter rejects Jesus as their Messiah and Christianity accepts him. So now we have a problem. Post-biblical Judaism, there are no miracles to support their claim that Jesus is not the Messiah. Actually, the miraculous workings moved from the prophets of Israel over to the apostles, and no miracles were continued within Judaism. There is no widely recognized central figure in post-biblical Judaism, and we say post-biblical when the New Testament started, who claimed to be the Messiah and had verified miracles to support his claim. There have been, of course, many messianic pretenders, but none provided miracles nor gained a wide acceptance in Judaism. So in Acts 5, there's a couple of examples that Gamaliel talks about, and but both of those leaders, Judas and Thaddeus, these two guys were false messiahs, and they ended up dying off, and then the people were scattered. Miraculous claims in Judaism. Josephus records a miracle in the Jewish War in AD 75 to 79, alleged to have happened only 10 to 15 years earlier, in which it was as bright as noon at 3 a.m., and a cow gave birth to a lamb. Josephus added, "I would have dismissed it as an invention had it not been vouched for by eyewitnesses and followed by disasters that bore out the signs." However, unlike biblical miracles, number one, there was no messianic truth claim connected with this alleged miracle. In other words, it's just something that happened. Number two, the story is based on hearsay evidence, which is unreliable. Number three, there is no confirmation of Josephus' story from another reliable source. And number four, even as unusual as a virgin birth is, nonetheless, it is still a human being born of a human, which fits the pattern for each after his kind, as in Genesis 1:24. How about the miraculous claims about Buddha? Well, there are claims of Buddha performing miracles, but they show signs of being legends for several reasons. Number one, they are not contemporary accounts, but much later additions, which is always a problem. Number two, Buddhism is a non-theistic religion, which by its very nature does not allow for supernatural acts, since it denies a supernatural theistic God. That's also a problem. They do not have a predictive element associated with them, obviously, because of their disconnection with the time of Buddha. They are not connected with any truth claim to come from a prophet of God. So they're just events that occurred that are assigned back in time as though they were from Buddha. C.S. Lewis said, "But what could be more absurd than that he who came to teach us that nature is an illusion," this is Buddhism, "from which we must escape, should occupy himself in producing effects on the natural level that he who comes to wake us from a nightmare should add to the nightmare?" In other words, if what you see is an illusion right now in life, why would you have miraculous stuff happen within the illusion to confuse the nightmare? C.S. Lewis goes on, "The more we respect his teachings, the less we could accept his miracles." Talking about Buddha. How about Krishna, right? Hare Krishna. One form of Hinduism called Hare Krishna claims that Krishna was a supernatural incarnation of God. Well, in response to that, Krishna did not claim to be an incarnation of the true theistic God, but of a pantheistic God, where everything is God, right? There are no contemporary accounts of multiple miracles Krishna performed to support any such claim. There were no specific and multiple long-range prophecies which he fulfilled. Krishna did not live a sinless life. Krishna did not predict and accomplish his physical resurrection from the dead as Jesus did. So many, many differences. And again, they all take on a kind of contradictory view, especially where, Krishna, his claim was connected to pantheism, where everything is believed to be God. How about the miracle claims about Apollonius of Tyana? It is held by some that Apollonius claimed to be the son of God and had the ability to do miracles to support his claim. So, this guy records the after-death miracle stories, including appearances and deification. So, the Greeks, man becomes a god. In Christianity, God becomes a man. But these claims are legend. Number one, the biography of, however you pronounce his name, is the only source of the life of Apollonius, and it ends with his death, not resurrection, as Jesus' biographies do. Number two, there is nothing supernatural in Apollonius' biography, either as to the claims of deity or miracles done to provide such a claim. Number three, the post-death miracle stories are not part of his biography. They are simply called stories or legends by his biographer, Philostrius, I guess. Damus, the alleged source for these stories, is most likely a non-existent person used as a literary device. Number five, the style of writing used by Philostrius was a popular literary form of the day called romance or romance fiction. Romance or romance fiction. It is not to be taken as literally or historically true. Philostrius was not an eyewitness, but was commissioned to compose his book by Julia Doma, wife of Roman Emperor Septimus, some 120 years after the death of Apollonius. A possible motive for the publication of Philostrius's work was a desire to counteract the growing influence of Jesus. The miracle stories of Apollonius are contradictory. Some say he died in Ephesus, others in Lindus or Crete, and then appeared later. So obvious, this is addressed because it was something that was postulated, but obviously it kind of falls with all the other false predictions and things that are not verifiable. The miracle claims for Muhammad, right? Alleged miracles in the Quran, alleged predictions in the Quran. This is what we'll look at: alleged miracles in the Hadith, alleged miraculous nature of the Quran. So, alleged miracles in the Quran. The general claim: Muslims use Surah, which means chapter 635, to show that Muhammad could do miracles. It reads, if their spurning is hard on thy mind, yet if thou wert able to seek a tunnel in the ground or a ladder to the skies and bring them a sign, what good? Response: it is hypothetical if thou wert able. It does not say he was able. Right? Yet, if thou were able. It implies that he could not. Otherwise, why did the charge say it was hard on thy or his mind? Right? Also, why offer the Quran as a miracle if he could do miracles of nature as Jesus did? Also, why did Muhammad refuse to do miracles when challenged to do so? In other words, these are all problems with Islam. The alleged splitting of the moon. The claim, Surah 54 reads, the hour of judgment is nigh, and the moon is cleft asunder, but if they see a sign, they turn away and say, this is but transient magic. Response: Muhammad is not mentioned in this passage. Number two, the Quran does not actually call this a miracle, using only the word sign. Number three, if it were a miracle, it would contradict other passages that claim Muhammad did not perform feats of nature like this. Number four, a sign like this would have been universally observed throughout the world, but there is no evidence that it was. Number five, even some Muslim scholars say this is about the resurrection of the last days, not a miracle during Muhammad's day. The phrase, the hour of judgment, refers to end times. You know, it's interesting, the long day of Joshua, where, he said, sun stand still, and it stayed light for him to defeat the enemy. There are other cultures that talk about an unusual day where the sun didn't go down. So, and that is, those are independent witnesses of that, but Nothing like this at all. The Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, the site of Muhammad's alleged ascension into heaven. The claim. This Isra story or night journey is alleged about Muhammad being transported to Jerusalem. Surah 17 says, "Glory to God, who did take his servant for a journey by night from the sacred mosque to the furthest mosque, whose precincts we did bless in order that we might show him some of our signs." The response. Even many Muslim scholars do not take this literally. Quran translator Yusuf Ali says it opens with the mystic vision of the ascension of the Holy Prophet. According to an early Islamic tradition, Muhammad's wife, Aisha, reported the apostle's body remained where it was, but God removed his spirit by night. In other words, his body's still there. God just took the spirit person. Even taken literally, it lacks testability and has no apologetic value. I mean, you can test the resurrection of Christ because, I mean, his body was gone. That was the indication, even to those that were his followers that were skeptic. It does not meet the Muslim test for a true miracle. See below, right? Alleged supernatural victory. The claim of the victory of Badr, we read in Surah 5, "O you who believe, call in remembrance the favor of God unto you when certain men formed the design to stretch out their hands against you, but God held back their hands from you, so fear God." According to Islamic tradition, the miracle involved God sending 3,000 angels to help in the battle and the miraculous rescue of Muhammad just before a Meccan was going to kill him with a sword. In response, many Muslim scholars believe Surah 8 is speaking of another event and is to be taken figuratively as God casting fear into the heart of Muhammad's enemy. Number 2, Surah 5 is taken by some to refer to another event, possibly to the attempted assassination of Muhammad at Usfan. Only Surah 3 mentioned Badr, and it says nothing about being a miracle. Certainly, it does not speak of a miracle that confirms Muhammad's prophetic credentials. Number 5, if a military victory confirms his prophethood, was the military defeat at Uhud a sign he was not a prophet? In other words, they pulled out 2 links of chain from Muhammad's wound and 2 of his front teeth fell off in the process. So that would work against him. Was the Israeli Six-Day War a miracle? Number 6, the Israeli Six-Day War in 1967 was one of the quickest and most decisive battles in the annals of modern warfare, yet no Muslim would consider it a miraculous sign of the divine approval of Israel over Islam. So again, when you apply the same standards to something else, they say, oh, no, that's not. But if that's the standards, then, equal is equal, and you got to take the other as miraculous too. This is part of the contradiction within Islam. The alleged splitting of Muhammad's chest. The claim, Islamic tradition claims that at Muhammad's birth, or just before his ascension, Gabriel cut open Muhammad's chest, removed and cleansed his heart, then filled it with wisdom, placed it back in the prophet's chest. Sounds painful. Surah 94 says, have we not expanded thee thy breast, and removed from thee thy burden, and to thy Lord turn all thy attention? In response, it says, however, even most conservative Islamic scholars take this passage as a figure of speech describing the great anxiety Muhammad experienced in his early years at Mecca. The Quranic commentator Yusuf Ali said, the breast is symbolically the seat of knowledge and of the highest feeling of love and affection. All right, so the alleged supernatural predictions. The prediction of Roman victory. The Quran supposedly predicted the Roman victory over the Persian army at Issus. Surah 30 says the Roman Empire has been defeated in a land close by, but they, even after this defeat of theirs, will soon be victorious within a few years. Response. Ali says a few years means 3 to 9 years, but some argue that the real victory did not come until 13 or 14 years after the prophecy. The defeat of the Romans by the Persians and the capture of Jerusalem took place around AD 614 or 615. The counteroffensive did not begin until 622, and the victory was not complete until 625. This would be 10 or 11 years, not a few spoken by Muhammad. Uthman's edition of the Quran had no vowel points. They were added much later. Hence, in this prophecy, the word, and I can't really pronounce that, they shall defeat, could have been rendered with the change of 2 vowels. I can't pronounce that either. They shall be defeated. And the comparison is like came and come in English. Even so, the prophecy is less than spectacular since it is not unusual. One would have expected the defeated Romans to bounce back in victory. It took little more than perceptive reading at the trends of the time to forecast such an event. At best, it could have been a good guess. There are no multiple long-range predictions in the Quran, such as the Bible has. And, I mean, that's just a fact. The Bible has many, many future predictions, and so many, and hundreds of them have come true, especially regarding Christ. Alleged supernatural predictions. The claim about 10-year persecution. Surah 89 says, by the nights twice 5, which is taken by some to be a prediction of the 10 years of persecutions early Muslims experienced. The response, this is a far-fetched interpretation, since even the great translator of the Quran, Abdullah Yusuf Ali, admitted that by the 10 nights are usually understood the first 10 nights of Zulhajj, the sacred season of pilgrimage. So it's tough when you can't get the Muslim scholars to even agree with what some of these things are. The so-called miracles in the Hadith, right? Most miracle claims from Muhammad are not based in the Quran. They occur in the Hadith, in other words, later traditions of Muhammad's life. All right, the claim. There are numerous miracle stories in the Hadith, which are traditions, including providing water for 10,000 troops, turning water into milk, trees, wolves, and mountains saluting Muhammad, feeding 1,000 men with one woman's small meal, cursing an enemy whose horse then sank up to its stomach in hard ground, turning the branch into a steel sword, healing of the broken leg of a companion. Let's respond to these. None of these are contemporary accounts, and at most, one or two, I think 1 or 2 things in my eye here. 1 or 200 years after the time of Muhammad. That's a long time afterwards start claiming miracles. They follow the same pattern as the apocryphal miracles of Christ from a century or 2 after his death. They are legendary embellishments. The apocryphal Gospels have weird miracles of Christ. They have nothing to do with eyewitnesses and their false Gospels. The most reliable collector, Bukhari, admitted that of the 300,000 stories in the Hadith, less than 10,000 might be true. That's over 290 that are admitted to be false. Well, there is no agreement among Muslims as to which ones are true. There is no one canon of authenticity for them accepted by all Muslims, so they're arguing amongst themselves. These stories only appeared after Christian apologists pointed out the superiority of Christianity because of its miraculous confirmation. Many of them bear an embellished resemblance to miracles found in the Bible. In other words, they're trying to go tit for tat here. They are all contrary to the Quran, where Muhammad repeatedly refused to do miracles. Even Yusuf Ali admitted that Muhammad did not perform any miracle in the sense of a reversing of nature, which again would nullify these, and none of them fit the 9 Muslim criteria for a miracle that can confirm a prophet's claim. You can read about that in the Encyclopedia of Islam. But here is the 9. Number 1, it is an act of God that can't be done by any other creature. Number 2, it is contrary to the customary course of things. Number 3, it is aimed at providing the authenticity of that prophet. Number 4, it proceeds in the exact manner announced. Number 5, which means it has to be very specific. It occurs only through the hands of a prophet. Number 6, in no way disavows Muhammad's prophetic claim, which unfortunately these create a conflict for him. It is accompanied by a challenge to repudiate it. It is announced in advance. It cannot be duplicated by anyone present. So none of the hadith stories even come close to meeting all these criteria. The so-called miracle of the Quran. They say that the Quran itself is a miracle. Many Muslims claim that the Quran is Muhammad's miracle. They insist that an uneducated person like Muhammad could not have produced such an eloquent piece of literature. Response: a literary masterpiece is not a miracle. No laws of nature are suspended to produce one. Number 2, Muhammad did not write the Quran. It was written down by others and edited by the third Caliph, Uthman, after Muhammad's death. Number 3, some critics have shown that the Quran is not a literary masterpiece but contains numerous grammatical errors. Number 4, formerly uneducated persons sometimes have great gifts of eloquence. Number 5, beauty is not a test for truth. Error can be beautifully expressed and truth can be put in an ugly form. Number 6, if literary beauty is a test for divine origin, the works of Shakespeare and Homer are divinely inspired as well, which Muslims would deny. If you want more information, I would recommend Answering Islam by Norm Geisler. Goes through much of this in much more detail. So, in conclusions, all of the world's great religion, Christianity, of all the world's great religions, right, Christianity alone meets the criteria necessary to establish miraculous confirmation of its truth claims. Christ is the only great world religious leader for whom we have reliable contemporary documents of his teaching and miracles. Christ is the only one of the great world religious leaders who claimed to be God. Christ is the only one who provided multiple, reliably and established miracles to confirm his truth claims. Hence, Christ alone has been confirmed to be God in human flesh. So, I think it's clear, therefore Jesus is God has been summed up. We have to address these other religious views because people use them to try to make comparisons and battle for position with the Bible, but there's nothing that comes close to it. There's nothing, as it says in the conclusions here, that really can be put forth and validated as real miracles, validated by eyewitness accounts, continuing today in the miraculous change in people's lives as well as everything. But even from the first century, with the apostles, with the writings in the New Testament, with those outside the Bible that also attest to and confirm Jesus' existence, crucifixion, and resurrection, and write about it, to just validate even the story of the Bible outside the Bible. The New Testament definitely has all the credentials, and the credentials of the New Testament tell us that Jesus claimed to be God, proved himself to be God miraculously. Therefore, Jesus is God, and the miraculous confirmation of it is established. So we'll continue on with point number 10 next time. So until then, may God richly bless you as you continue to study His Word.